Okay, hear me out. The optimistic, Silver Age world of The Incredibles eventually sours and curdles into the dark, cynical, and violent reality of Watchmen. The superhero relocation program is just the beginning of a process that ends with the Keene Act, completely outlawing heroes. We remember them as heroes, a family forced into hiding by a world that had grown to fear them, a story of a return to glory, of finding your place in the world. This is the story of The Incredibles. But we also know where the story of the superhero ends. It doesn't end with a parade. It ends in 1985 in a gutter with a smiley face badge stained in blood. It ends with the Keene Act. It ends with Watchmen. But what if I told you they aren't two different stories at all? What if one is simply the tragic, inevitable conclusion of the other? The more I've thought about it, the more I'm convinced. The Incredibles is the secret prequel to Watchmen. Today, I'm going to prove to you that the happy ending of The Incredibles was a lie. It was merely the calm before the storm. The transition from the Golden Age of Metroville to the Dark Age of New York wasn't a reboot. It was a historical progression. To understand the connection, we have to look at the politics. Both universes are defined not by the villains the heroes fight, but by the governments that control them. In The Incredibles, we see the beginning of the end. The suits plague supers' headlines. The public turns against them. The government's solution? The superhero relocation program. Notice the wording. Relocation, not termination. In the 1960s, the government still had use for these assets. They put them in the suburbs. They gave them desk jobs. They kept them on a leash. Why? Because it was the Cold War. You don't destroy a weapon like Bob Parr. You put him in storage just in case the Soviets try something. Now, fast forward 15 years to the world of Watchmen. The relocation strategy has failed. The heroes didn't stay quiet. The police went on strike. The public anger boiled over. This leads to the Keene Act of 1977. This wasn't a relocation. This was a ban. Do you see the progression? The relocation program was the compromise. The Keene Act was the final solution. The timeline matches perfectly. The glory days Bob Parr reminisces about are the days of the Minutemen. Both movies tell the exact same political story. A society that loves its saviors until they become inconvenient, then legislates them into oblivion. But a shared timeline requires a shared philosophy. And the philosophy of Watchmen, the idea that the world must be destroyed to be saved, didn't start with Ozymandias. It started with a kid named Buddy. Syndrome and Ozymandias are the exact same archetype. No superpowers. Both rely entirely on intellect and massive corporate wealth. The method. Both secretly murder heroes to test their machines. Syndrome used the Omnidroid to kill Gazerbeam and Stormicide. Ozymandias killed the comedian to hide his plot. The monster. Syndrome builds a giant robot to attack the city to create a false flag event. Ozymandias builds a giant squid to attack the city to create a false flag event.
You sly dog! You got me monologuing! I can't...
Syndrome failed because he monologued. He was young, arrogant, a product of the optimistic 60s. He wanted the credit.
I'm not a comic book villain. I triggered it 35 minutes ago.
Ozymandias succeeded because he learned from history. He learned from Syndrome. He didn't monologue until the deed was done. Ozymandias is simply the adult version of Syndrome. So how do we bridge the gap? How do we get from Metroville to Manhattan? 1940s to 1950s, the Golden Age, the Minutemen, Silk Spectre 1, Nite Owl 1. And the supers, Mr. Incredible and Gazerbeam, operate freely. 1962, The Incredibles. The tone shifts. Lawsuits pile up, the government initiates the Relocation Program. Syndrome attempts his coup and fails, but he introduces the concept of technological mass destruction. 1966 to 1975, the Dark Ages. The Relocation Program begins to crack. Heroes start breaking the rules. Tensions escalate in Vietnam. 1977, the Keene Act is passed. All vigilantes are outlawed. The Incredibles generation is forced to retire permanently or go rogue. 1985, Watchmen. The end of the world. The Incredibles isn't a standalone story. It is chapter 1 of the Watchmen history book. But the strongest evidence lies in the evolution of the characters. Let's talk about the man himself, Mr. Incredible. Now, the common internet theory is that Mr. Incredible becomes Nite Owl 2, Dan Dreiberg. It makes sense on the surface. Both are physically imposing men who have gone soft. Both work terrible civilian jobs they hate. Both have a secret room in their house where they keep their old suits and relive their glory days. But look closer. Nite Owl is soft. He's nostalgic. He compromises. Bob Parr is not soft. Bob Parr is a powder keg of repressed rage waiting to explode. Does that look like Nite Owl to you? Or does that look like a man with a violent, uncompromising moral code who is barely held in check by society? My theory is darker. Bob Parr doesn't become Nite Owl. Bob Parr becomes Rorschach. Here is the evidence. Exhibit A, the moral absolutism.
Anyway.
Tell me you haven't been listening to the police scanner again.
Look, I performed a public service. You act like that's a bad thing.
It is a bad thing, Bob. Uprooting our family again.
Bob Parr hates the law when the law prevents him from doing what is right. He believes in absolute justice, regardless of what the government says. To understand this transformation, look at how they view the world.
4th grade to the 5th grade.
It's a ceremony.
It's psychotic. They keep creating new ways to celebrate mediocrity, but...
Bob views society with disdain. He is annoyed by mediocrity. Now listen to Rorschach decades later.
The accumulated filth of all their will foam up around their waists. And all the politicians will look up and shout, "Save us." And I'll whisper, "No."
It is the exact same philosophy. Bob Parr believes that if you have the power to stop evil and you don't, you are complicit. He refuses to compromise. Now listen to Rorschach.
Never compromise. Not even in the face of Armageddon.
Exhibit B, the catalyst, the tragedy. In The Incredibles, Helen and the kids survive the missile attack. But in the Watchmen timeline, the real timeline, they don't. Imagine a version of history where Syndrome succeeds. He kills the family. What happens to Bob Parr then? Without Helen to ground him, the Bob Parr persona dies. The mask becomes the face. He loses the weight, not through exercise, but through starvation and poverty. He stops bathing. He stops caring about his civilian identity. The massive muscles atrophy into the lean, wiry strength of a street fighter. He stops being a hero who saves cats and becomes a vigilante who punishes criminals. Mr. Incredible always said he felt more like himself in the suit. Rorschach takes it a step further. He refers to his mask as his face.
My spotless gloves. My face.
Notice the evolution. Mr. Incredible wears a small mask to hide his eyes. Rorschach wears a full mask to hide his humanity. It is the final withdrawal from a society that took everything from him. Exhibit D, the friendship. And who is the only person who sticks by him? Frozone, Lucius Best, a man who just wants to keep the peace, who likes the good old days, who is practical. Frozone is Nite Owl, think about it. Lucius Best is the one who adapts. He marries a normal woman, Honey. He tries to live a normal life. He is the Dan Dreyberg to Bob's Walter Kovac. He is the only friend who can tolerate Bob's intensity, the only one who remembers the man inside the monster. So, no, Mr. Incredible isn't the sad guy in the basement. He is the man walking through the sewers, breaking fingers, screaming at the world to save itself and whispering, no. If the heroes evolved, so did the support staff. We need to talk about the most efficient assassin in history, Edna Mode. We view this scene as comedy, but look at the body count. Edna Mode is the primary costume designer for the superhero community. She knows capes are dangerous. She knows they kill.
No kicks!
Now, look at the death of Dollar Bill in Watchmen. Dollar Bill was a corporate hero. He would have hired the best. He would have hired Edna. And she gave him a cape. Why? Because Edna Mode saw the writing on the wall. She knew the age of heroes was ending. She knew the government was cracking down. So she began a subtle, systematic culling of the incompetent heroes. She was natural selection in a bob cut. She cleared the board of the silly heroes, the Strategales, the Dollar Bills, leaving only the tactical, brutal operators like Rorschach and the Comedian. Edna Mode didn't just design the suits, she designed the darker future. But there is one massive, glaring hole in this theory. Watchmen is a world of physics. The Incredibles is a world of magic. In Watchmen, there is only one superpowered being, Dr. Manhattan. He can teleport, he can duplicate himself, he can manipulate matter, he can change his size. He is a god. Now look at Jack Parr. What are his powers? Teleportation, duplication, matter manipulation, density control. It is the exact same power set. The official story in Watchmen is that John Osterman was disintegrated in an intrinsic field subtractor. Science tells us that should have killed him. But what if John Osterman wasn't entirely human? What if he was a carrier of a dormant genetic mutation? My theory is this. Jack Parr was patient zero, an evolutionary anomaly, the God gene. Remember the babysitter? She saw everything. She made the calls. The government found out about the baby with infinite potential. Jack grew up, perhaps experimented on, perhaps suppressed, but his DNA entered the gene pool. John Osterman is a descendant of the Parr family. The accident in the intrinsic field generator didn't create Dr. Manhattan. It simply unlocked the Jack potential that was already sleeping in his cells. The detachment from humanity, the blue skin, the inability to connect with normal people, that isn't the accident. That is just the final stage of the Parr evolution. Jack was the prototype. Dr. Manhattan is the finished product. So when you watch the end of The Incredibles, realize you are watching a tragedy of inches. If those missiles had hit, if Helen hadn't stretched into a parachute, the bright, smiling Bob Parr would have died in that ocean, and Walter Kovac would have washed up on the shore. Edna Mode designed the suits that killed the weak. Jack carried the DNA that would eventually leave Earth for Mars, and Mr. Incredible was just one bad day away from becoming the monster in the trench coat. One world had to die so the other could be born. I'm tweeting at Zack Snyder right now. Ask him about the plane crash. Ask him about the ink blot. We deserve answers. And until next time, remember, no capes.